means birth and refers to the birth of sun. As the longest night of the year is also a turning point, after which the days grows longer. In ancient times, it symbolizes the triumph of the sun over the power of darkness. Iranians celebrate winter solstice for thousands of years for its significance in the battle of light and goodness over dark and evil. Victory of light is a time of joy and celebration in many cultures. And this is also, we use this celebration as a token of unity between cultures.
Friends, thank you very much for coming to our Yalda celebration. As Tahir mentioned, Yalda is the longest night of the year. However, it is actually a very positive holiday because it is also the time at which the day starts to become longer than the night, and light is victorious over darkness. To the ancient Persians, light and sun and good deeds, good thoughts, good words were paramount to their identity. In fact, the ancient Greeks would say that the Persians had no history of telling lies, and they would make fun of that. And in fact, in the ancient religion of Zoroastrianism, the belief was that there was a constant struggle between light and dark. And light would be ever victorious over darkness. So Yalda is a reminder of that theme of the struggle between lightness and dark. And on the right, we have a replica of Cyrus the Great's Human Rights Declaration at the time in which he took Babylon without shedding of blood. That is, he was actually he was invited by the inhabitants of Babylon, and that's when the Persian Empire started to grow. When he took Babylon, he declared that people could keep their religious faiths and worship as they wanted. Also, the Persians did not take slaves, unlike the vast majority of so-called empires back in that time. And he declared that the Jews who were held as captives in Babylon could go back to their land, and he in fact helped them rebuild their temple that had been destroyed. So you can see this theme of respect for human rights and respect for everything that is good, and goodness that knows no boundaries, that knows no cultural barriers, is paramount in the Persian identity. There are many today that say human rights is an issue that is different and has different meanings in different societies, but we know that to be a very big lie. In fact, human rights is the same everywhere. Goodness and respect for human life, goodness and respect for a person's right to live as they wish, to worship as they wish, to say as they wish, is the same, no matter if you're Muslim, if you're Baha'i, if you're Christian, if you're Jewish. And that belief, unfortunately, today in Iran is not practiced by the government. And due to their ties to the oil money that's there, they have their tentacles on our country. And despite the fact that the Persians have this rich history of respect for human rights, the fact that we have the Middle East and Central Asia's first parliament and the beginnings of democracy, all the way back in the beginning of the 20th century, they insist that their version of government is just and Islamic. And of course, the majority of Iranians know that it is neither just, neither is it Islamic. And unfortunately today, people like Nasrin Sotoudeh or Sattar Beheshti are punished in the prisons of Iran. And Nasrin Sotoudeh is a human rights lawyer, so her only crime was basically helping to defend others. So this is one of the very common practices of the Islamic, so-called Islamic regime, is that they imprison the lawyers that defend prisoners of conscience. And she is just one of them. So she, for example, has been on a food strike. She hasn't been eating anything for over 49 days. And the reason she went on this was that they outlawed her 12-year-old daughter from traveling outside of Iran. So you figure, why is she being punished for her mom? And why are you scared of a 12-year-old woman? Is that how much of a coward you are? That is unbelievable, that a regime would be scared of a 12-year-old girl. And so finally, after 49 days of being on strike in the prison, in the infamous Evan prison, they took that restriction off her daughter and she broke her fast. But unfortunately, there are many who are not as famous and as well known as Nasrin Sotoudeh. And the regime is a predator on people that are unknowns. So it is our belief in the community here in Qanun that human rights is a cultural thing. It has nothing to do with politics. And if we don't struggle, and if we don't stand up for the rights and the voices of those that are suffering in Iran, then we need to be ashamed of ourselves. So even when we have celebrations like this, we still don't forget our compatriots. And we want you all to please remember them and to raise their voice. Because if we don't, then they become like Sattar Beheshti, who about a month and a half ago was writing blogs on the internet criticizing the Iranian government, and unfortunately he was taken in by their so-called cyber police, whose right is basically to find people who are expressing themselves and imprison them or torture them. And they were a little bit aggressive, it seems, and they killed him after a few days of being under in their prison. And fortunately for the power of media and the courageousness of his family, they were able to get out the fact that he was murdered by this regime. But there are many in Iran who are murdered that we don't even know their names. And unfortunately, when they're unknown, it's a lot easier for the regime to kill them. So Nasrin Sotoudeh, because Iranians around the world are remembering her and voicing their concern about her safety, she is safe. She's not going to be murdered. And in fact, she may be released because of the fact the Iranians speak for her and people around the world, not just Iranians. In fact, a lot of Iranians are silent, unfortunately, and it is primarily foreigners and Europeans, Americans who are active in representing her voice. But because of the fact that she's well known, the regime is not going to harm her. But Sattar Beheshti and many like him have been killed and will be killed in Iran's prisons because no one knows about them, because no one thinks about them. So please remember your countrymen, and even if you're not Iranian, remember that these are human beings and try to express your support for them, those prisoners of conscience in Iran, and in remembrance of the Iranian civilization's 3,000-year history actually calls for this struggle between light and darkness. And we will be victorious. One day, Iran will be a free country, just like Japan and Germany were held under prison, under the forces of fascism for many years, and now they're very model societies. So we know that to be a fact, and Iran will be once again a free country. And just remember to please think about these prisoners of conscience tonight and every day of your life, and try to voice your support for them. Thank you very much.
انتها رسید دختر شاه پریان از خواب قصه ها پرید دیده از کفش بلوری از زمین مونده براش در رو سرش تاج گله فرش مخمر زیر پاش هرچی نگاه کرد طفلکی دور و برش هیچی ندیدی نه مرده و قصر طلا نه جاده و اسب سفید قصه که تموم میشه وقتی بیدار شدنه آخر خوشباوری اول شکستنه یه بیابون رو به رو یه خرابه پشت سر پری ناز بی‌نوا شد غریب و در از فرد و اقبال سیاه گذر اون پاره ماه افتاد به شهر آدما بین ما میون ما قصه که تموم میشه وقت بیدار شدنه آخر خوشباوری اول شکستنه دور و بر هیچ خبری از عاشق دل خسته نیست قصه ما حقیقته افسانه سر بسته نیست این دور و بر هیچ خبری از عاشق دل خسته نیست قصه ما حقیقته افسانه سر بسته نیست ای روزهای فردا ای فکرهای زیبا ای واژه‌های زرین ای آسمان لرزان دریاهای باد و باران بالای شهر تهران در انتظار طوفان طوفان سرد و سنگین بهر تو می‌سرایم از خود برون می‌آیم لب‌های بسته‌ام را یک لحظه می‌گشایم ای سرزمین پیری یک شاعر پیاده همراه جویبارت با یک پیام ساده خوشحال روزگارت در این زمان غمگین از ریشه های گیلان گنبدهای سپاهان از کوچه های شیراز تا آتش‌های اهواز لبخندهای شیرین بهر تو می‌سرایم از خود برون بالشم نشسته عطر تن تو خیال من بو میکنه عطر گل پیرهن تو هنوز صدای تو میاد میونه بازی های باد کنار قاب پنجره هنوز دلم تو رو میخواد تو این رسالت هوس تو این دیار همه تو این سرا که بی کسی یه عمر عادت منه به یاد دست های تو تکرار روزو میشکنم به جستجوی یاد تو با آدما حرف میزنم به هم نمیرسیم ما چاره‌ای جز فاصله نیست عهدیه که بسته شده پس دیگه جای گله نیست نوازش تو حک شده رو شبیگونه های من اسم تو حرمت منه هم هستی جدای من به اشتیاق این که با از گونه تو بگذره نوای بیقرار من به باد بوسه میزنه کجا گذاشتم یه روز قشنگ آفتابی با تو کوچه ها گذاشتم دویدم و دویدم به آدما رسیدم چه چیزایی که دیدم چه حرفایی شنیدم موقعی که قده دنیا بود عروسکامو جا گذاشتم یه روز قشنگ آفتابی با تو کوچه ها گذاشتم موقعی که قده دنیا بود عروسکامو جا گذاشتم یه روز قشنگ آفتابی با تو کوچه ها گذاشتم کجای این زمین خدایا جای موندنه عزیزان دنیا تا سر غربت منه چای و قهوه تلخ بیدار میکنم. من درس میخونم که فردا مثل کلاه بابام پس نعرکه غربت اینجا میمونم